Rome, Italy, October 1972. The Colosseum stands in the background, ancient and indifferent. But today the arena that matters is smaller, a film set inside a cramped Roman warehouse, smelling of sawdust and sweat. Two men face each other across a stone floor. One is 5 feet 7 inches tall, 135 pounds with the stillness of a coiled spring. The other is 6 feet even, a two-time undefeated world karate champion, with hands that have broken men in competition on 3 continents. What is at stake is not a trophy, it is not a belt. What is at stake is a question that the martial arts world has been arguing for decades: who is the most dangerous man alive? This is the story of Bruce Lee's greatest gamble and the unlikely friendship that was born from it. By 1972, Bruce Lee is not just a martial artist. He is a force of nature on the verge of global explosion. Enter the Dragon is still a year away from release, but the big boss has already shattered box office records across Asia. He is 31 years old, training 6 hours a day, obsessing over a philosophy of combat he calls Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. He does not believe in styles, he believes in truth. But Bruce Lee is also a filmmaker now, and he has written a fight scene for his new film, The Way of the Dragon, that requires something he cannot fake: a real opponent. A credible one, a man the audience would genuinely fear. He needs the best fighter he knows. He picks up the phone and calls Chuck Norris. But to understand why this mattered, we need to go back to a gym in Los Angeles 4 years earlier, where two men from completely different worlds first locked eyes. Carlos Ray Norris grows up in Ryan, Oklahoma, the son of an alcoholic father and a deeply religious mother. He is not a natural athlete. He is not a prodigy. He is, by his own admission, shy, awkward, and unremarkable as a young man. Then the Air Force sends him to Korea. It is 1958. Norris is stationed at Asan Air Base when he first watches Korean soldiers training in Tang-Soo-Do, a striking art built on brutal efficiency. Something in him wakes up. He starts training. He trains obsessively, the way some men pray. By the time he returns to the United States, he is already teaching out of his own garage. By 1968, Chuck Norris is the professional middleweight karate champion of the world, a title he will defend without a single loss for 6 consecutive years. He is not flashy. He does not perform. He is clinical, precise, and devastating. Fighters who face him describe the same experience. They never see the kick that drops them. He opens a chain of karate schools across California. One of his students is a young actor named Steve McQueen, and it is McQueen who, in 1968, introduces Chuck Norris to Bruce Lee. What happens next is not a fight, it is something rarer, a mutual recognition. The two men begin to train together informally, testing techniques, trading ideas. They are opposites in almost every way. Norris is a traditionalist, rooted in systems and forms. Lee is a heretic who has dismantled every system he ever studied. Bruce Lee once said, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, add what is essentially your own." It is not a philosophy Norris initially agrees with. He has spent a decade perfecting a system. Lee is telling him systems are the problem. But Norris is also honest enough to watch, and what he watches unsettles him. Bruce Lee is fast, not fast in the way fighters use the word casually. People who train with him in this period describe a different category of speed. Wally J., the judo champion and close friend of Lee, once noted that when Lee demonstrated his 1-inch punch, most people couldn't register what had hit them until they were already moving backward. What most people didn't know was that Lee was also deeply insecure about one thing: size. At 135 pounds, he trained against the question that haunted him: what happens when a larger, equally skilled opponent refuses to go down? Chuck Norris, at a lean and powerful 170 pounds of competition-hardened muscle, was the living version of that question. So when Lee begins writing The Way of the Dragon in 1972, he engineers the answer on film. He will write himself a fight scene against the greatest Western martial artist in the world on the floor of the Roman Colosseum, and the world will watch to see what happens. He calls Norris and makes his pitch. He needs Chuck to play the villain, a cold, remorseless American fighter sent to Rome to destroy Lee's character once and for all. Norris listens. There's a long pause on the line. And then Chuck Norris says, "Okay, but I'm not going to make it easy for you." Lee's response, by multiple accounts, was immediate. He laughed. On set in Rome, the atmosphere is different from what the crew expects. There is no trash talk, no posturing. What there is instead is something almost more unsettling: two elite predators quietly calculating each other, moving through choreography with the controlled energy of men who could, at any moment, make it real. One of the production assistants on set that week later recalled, "You didn't joke around them, not when they were working. The air felt different." The choreography for the Colosseum sequence is developed collaboratively. Lee and Norris designed the fight together, round by round, each man contributing techniques from their own system. But there is a moment during rehearsal when something shifts. Norris throws a kick not full power, but at a speed and angle that was not in the plan. A test, a real one. Lee doesn't flinch, he slips it, eyes steady, and looks at Norris for a long moment. Bruce Lee looked at Chuck Norris and smiled. Again he said, "Faster this time." And then everything changed. What audiences see when The Way of the Dragon releases in December 1972 is a fight sequence unlike anything cinema has produced. It runs nearly 7 minutes, an eternity on screen. It is not choreographed in the traditional sense. It breathes. Norris's character, Tang Lung's executioner, is given a full arc. He arrives confident. He dominates early. Lee's character is visibly hurt, adapting, searching. There is a moment, filmed in slow motion, where Norris has Lee pinned and the outcome genuinely feels uncertain, not because of acting, but because both men's bodies are speaking a language that cannot be faked. And then Lee's character finds his rhythm. The turning point is a single exchange, a jab-kick combination that Norris's character cannot read, executed at a speed that even on film, even in 1972, makes audiences lean forward in their seats. From that moment, the tide shifts, not through power, through precision, through the refusal to fight in any style the opponent can predict. Lee later said of the scene, "The best fight is the one that doesn't look like a fight at all." By the film's end, Norris's character lies still on the stone floor of the Colosseum. Lee's character covers the body with respect, a warrior's acknowledgement. It is one of the most emotionally complex endings to a fight scene in the history of martial arts cinema. Chuck Norris, in interviews across the following decades, speaks about Lee with a consistency and warmth that is striking. He does not qualify it, he does not hedge. He calls Lee the most gifted martial artist he ever encountered, not the strongest, not the most technically trained, but the most complete. "Bruce had something," Norris said, "that you can't teach and can't fake." The fight scene in The Way of the Dragon does something no martial arts film had done before. It made Western audiences take Asian action cinema seriously. It was not Bruce Lee defeating a cartoon villain. It was Bruce Lee defeating a man the audience could see was genuinely dangerous. The credibility of the opponent was the credibility of the victory. Enter the Dragon releases 8 months later, and Bruce Lee becomes the first Asian action star in global cinema history. The template for every martial arts film that follows: the respectful, dangerous opponent, the earned victory. The philosophical underpinning is built in that Colosseum in those 7 minutes between two men who trained together and genuinely respected each other. Bruce Lee dies 9 months after The Way of the Dragon premieres. He is 32 years old. Here is what this story is really about. Bruce Lee didn't call Chuck Norris because he needed an actor. He called him because he needed the truth. He needed to put his philosophy, that adaptability defeats system, that the formless defeats the rigid, against the most credible challenge he could find. And he needed to do it where everyone could watch. That is the lesson. The greatest performers in any field don't avoid the hardest tests, they write them into the script. They choose opponents who could actually beat them, because only that kind of pressure reveals what is real. Bruce Lee once wrote in his personal journal, "If you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there, you must go beyond them." Rome, Italy, October 1972. Two men stand across from each other on a stone floor. One will win, one will lose, both will walk away changed. The real question was never who was more dangerous. The real question was, who is willing to find out? What would you have done?